Hi everyone, I hope you had a great weekend. We are going to start our unit, continue the unit with our experiments. Last week we talked about conclusions and the claims, the evidence, and the reasoning, and now we are going to start setting up experiments, and there are some very important parts of our experiment. We already know that we have to keep one variable controlled, meaning we have to keep that the same every single time, so that way it can see how it affects our results. If we change more than one thing, we don't know which one mattered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through an experiment my son actually did, and I did in college as well, so that we can talk about what is an independent variable and what does a dependent variable look like. Okay, a variable can be anything that can be changed. So for instance, I have an apple and I have an apple cutter, so that way I can control the size. I have 3 bowls that are exactly the same size. I have a measuring cup, so that way I have the same amount of liquid in every single cup. All of these taken to effect can essentially affect the results. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to cut my apple into pieces. So you can't see that in the camera, but I'll show you. So I'm going to use that, and yes, you may see the wonderful apple juices squirting up, but hey. Okay, so we have our apple in pieces, okay? And I'm trying to find out what liquid I can use to keep the apple from browning. Because, the apple opens up and it gets all brown. Even though it's still good to eat, it still looks gross. So we're going to try to find a way if water or vinegar is a better liquid, or should we just keep it in the air, okay? So I have an empty apple right here. I'm going to put just one apple slice in there by itself with no liquid. This bowl right here, I have half a cup of water that I'm going to put in. And then in my other cup, I'm going to put half a cup of vinegar in. So give me a minute, let me measure it out. Alright. So, oh good grief, that vinegar stinks. Okay, so I have my half a cup of vinegar in there, and I'm going to put in one other slice. Okay, so I have my apple slices. Let me show you. As you can see, I have my apple slices setting in here, and I'm going to let them sit for a couple of minutes, and we're going to see what happens. And I also have my wonderful apple that's all by itself. Okay, so while these are setting, let's talk about, we all realize I already went through every single variable. The variable I choose to change is the liquid. I have vinegar, water, and then I have the one all by itself. That's kind of like my standard. What's going to happen if nothing was applied to it. Now the liquid is called an independent variable because I'm choosing to change it, and the result, such as the browning of the apple, is called a dependent variable because that's what's being changed and affected because of my independent variable. Okay, so if you've ever done something where you change the color of the light, Cameron did that one year. We had plants that grew in white light, and we had plants that grew in blue light. Okay, and we all had them in a closet. Fun experiment, let me tell you. And so our independent variable was the color of the light, either white light or blue light. The dependent variable, the one that changed that we are measuring because of it, was the growth, okay? Which we call that as quantitative data because we're actually measuring the growth of the plant. In this instance, our data would be qualitative because we are going to use observations to see which one is browner or not. Because I still have my apple right here, and you can see the little ridges here are starting to brown out a little bit, okay? So we're going to pause this. I'm going to let this sit it's been sitting for 2 minutes already. I'm going to let it sit for another 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we're going to evaluate the color of our apples to see if either liquid did better at preserving the brownness, or is the air just a better thing. Okay, so just in case it didn't record the last time I just did it, we have our apple that was just sitting in the air, okay? We have the apple, that's not what you're supposed to do, that was sitting in the vinegar. You see how brown it's been. And this is the apple that was sitting in the water, okay? So you need to determine what liquid you think provided the best coating for the apple, okay? So we have water and vinegar, and then the air. So maybe if you don't think either one did a good job and the air is better, then write that. So I need you to write a conclusion on what you think is the best one.